Most of us look at opening up to someone else like standing on the edge of a cliff. You are either perfectly safe on solid ground, or you are plummeting into a catastrophic fall. The human brain evolved to keep us alive, which means it has a habit of processing a social risk, like admitting a fear or asking for help, as a literal physical threat. Treating every personal disclosure like a life or death jump guarantees isolation. The fear of the fall simply keeps you locked in place. To navigate out of that isolation, we have to look at this map. It organizes human interaction into 3 distinct zones. Right in the middle is the zone of comfort. This is a tightly enclosed room of absolute behavioral safety, carrying 0 social risk. But maintaining 0 risk has a cost. If you never leave this center point, you remain a permanent stranger. Way out here is the outer boundary, the zone of danger. This is territory where the probability of a negative outcome is too high. That leaves this critical middle ground, the zone of learning. This uncertain, illuminated territory is the only space where relationship growth occurs. Many interactions stall because we find ourselves oscillating wildly between total safety and high-stakes fear. We effectively jump over the only space where we actually get to know one another. Without a way to step into that middle ground, you remain a stranger in a safe room, unable to bridge the gap. This is where we use the 15% rule. It is a specialized tool designed to pull you out of comfort and into the zone of learning without the fear of crashing. Think of it like a physical progression model in skiing. You don't jump straight to the steepest peak. You master a beginner slope, and then you move to an incline that is only marginally steeper. Inside that narrow 15% margin, you experience a very specific emotional cocktail, a tolerable mix of both fear and exhilaration. When you survive that slight localized stress, your brain and body adapt. They process the new experience and recalibrate your baseline for what feels safe. Enduring the tension of a small stretch permanently assimilates that new territory. Your comfort zone expands to absorb the space he's claimed. Let's run the math on a real-world interaction. If you say a zero-risk statement like, "I worry about what others think," you are completely safe, but you also yield 0 relational growth. Now, contrast that with a specifically calibrated 15% stretch. "I made a comment about our friend Michael, and I've been worrying about how you felt about me ever since." The mechanical downside of that specific move is low. It relies on a known dynamic, so it rarely results in a relationship catastrophe. The upside, however, compounds instantly. You get a measurable increase in how deeply the other person understands your internal state. The 15% rule breaks the vulnerability binary. It creates an asymmetrical risk-to-reward ratio that favors connection over isolation. There is a major variable we have to account for. Applying the 15% rule requires treating it as a subjective guide rather than a fixed equation. A disclosure like discussing therapy might register as a safe 15% stretch for a 35-year-old living in a major city. As this map shows, that identical disclosure plotted against a different demographic, like a 55-year-old in a rural community, might trigger a massive 90% danger leap. A relationship map is useless if it does not dynamically adjust to the cultural and personal context of the people actually using it. Which brings us to the final safeguard required to operate this system, the impact filter, which is really just another term for empathy. Pushing yourself to open up can become toxic if it is executed without calculating the current emotional state of the person receiving the information. If you dump a detailed grievance about your workday onto someone who has just experienced a severe personal trauma, your calibration is off. This animation illustrates the fallout. Failing to use the impact filter inadvertently shoves the other person directly into their own zone of danger. Successful human connection requires the continuous, delicate management of tension between personal disclosure and relational discretion. Escaping the safe room is not achieved by a single heroic leap off a cliff. It happens by executing a lifelong series of small, empathetic 15% stretches.